On Monday night, Venezuelan citizens held a national vigil to reaffirm their demand for the release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores 1 month after their kidnapping by U.S. military forces. People gathered at the Alta Gracia Parish in Caracas for a vigil demanding the liberation of Venezuela's presidential couple, who were kidnapped on January 3 in a U.S. into national territory. According to reports from the authorities, the armed attack left at least 100 people dead and a similar number wounded. Thus, the people of this South American country continue to demand respect for their sovereignty and reiterate their firm support for the Bolivarian Revolution. And 1 month after the U.S. attack against Venezuela and the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores, the Foreign Minister Ivan Hill denounced this illegal action. On his Telegram account, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister stated, "Today, the voice of our entire country is rising up to demand the release of our constitutional president and our representative, undisputed leaders who have never wavered in defending sovereignty and the legacy of Commander Chavez. We want them back." And 1 month after the kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores, activities are taking place around the world. At the Venezuelan embassy in China, an event was organized to demand the release of the presidential couple. Our correspondent Bruno Falsi was present and brings us more details.
Greetings, comrades. On February 3 marked 1 month since the kidnapping of the Venezuelan constitutional president Nicolás Maduro Moros and the First Lady Celia Flores, following the military attacks and intervention of United States. At the Venezuela embassy in the Chinese capital here in Beijing, a photo gallery dedicated to the president and the First Lady was inaugurated as part of an international campaign demanding their release and the return to the country. Similar events were held at Venezuela embassy in various parts in the world. During the ceremony, the Venezuela ambassador denounced the military operation as a grave violation of international law and emphasized that the demand for their release has become a global humanitarian cause. Later, he gave us an interview for teleSUR.
A 30 días de este secuestro, de una acción
30 days have passed since this kidnapping, a criminal act against the Venezuelan state, which has significantly affected peace and tranquility. Moreover, it violates international law and jeopardizes relations between states. So, it's been 30 days, and in this great campaign, Bring Them Back, return to our land our constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, an exemplary man, a great man, a family man, a strategist, a great politician, and above all, a great leader who has guaranteed peace in the country throughout this time.
A lo largo del tiempo, la paz en el país.
Who has guaranteed the country's development throughout this time, and who has illegally and criminally kidnapped.
Criminalmente fue secuestrado.
Remedios Ceballos reiterated that the bombings also damaged civilians' infrastructure, violating fundamental principles of international law, while international pressure keeps and continues to mount for the return of the President Nicolás Maduro and the representative Celia Flores to Venezuela. With this news from here, the capital of China, we return with you in the studios in La Habana, Cuba.
And in China, the government reiterated its condemnation of the military intervention and the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores 1 month after the aggression against Venezuela. China's Foreign Minister spokesperson Guo Jiakun reaffirmed China's support for the defense of Venezuela's sovereignty, dignity, and legitimate rights. In this regard, the spokesperson affirmed his willingness to work with the international community to firmly defend the Charter of the United Nations. The spokesperson also denounced the use of force by the United States against a sovereign state, describing it as intimidating behavior and an act that seriously violates international law and undermines the sovereignty of peoples.
The United States laid a military strike against Venezuela, and its forcible detention of President Maduro and his wife constitutes a serious violation of international law, infringes upon Venezuela's sovereignty, and threatens peace and stability in Latin America and the Caribbean. China firmly opposes this. China supports Venezuela in safeguarding its sovereignty, dignity, and legitimate rights, and will work with the international community to firmly uphold the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, adhere to the bottom line of international morality, and safeguard international fairness and justice.
And in Russia, solidarity groups, political parties, and government organizations came together in a massive rally in support of Venezuela. People braved the low temperatures this Tuesday at the Venezuelan embassy in Moscow to demand the release of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Congresswoman Celia Flores, who were kidnapped by the United States among the illegal criminalization of January 3rd. The large rally is part of international actions to promote respect for international humanitarian law and part of the Bring Them Back campaign. And the Dominican Solidarity Committee in Defense of the Sovereignty of Peoples in Struggle called for a march in Santo Domingo to demand the release of President Nicolás Maduro and Celia Flores 1 month after the kidnapping by U.S. forces. The march will start at 5 p.m. local time from the iconic Copello building and head to the statue of Colonel Francisco Alberto Camaño in the colonial city. In this context, several social and popular organizations have confirmed their participation in what they describe as an act of internationalist solidarity. The day also coincides with the anniversary of Playa Caracoles landing, linking the historical Dominican resistance with the current defense of Venezuelan sovereignty. Organized people, people's power. Those patrols are going to your communities. Those patrol cars, no one can take it away from your quadrant of peace. If there is a patrol car that corresponds to 4 communal circuits, it has to patrol in those 4 circuits. It cannot be anywhere else. It should not be anywhere else. It should be fully dedicated to its communal circuits. The same with the motorcycles. Who will control these? You. Because here, as you know, in the quadrant of peace, you can find the national police, the state police, the National Bolivarian Guard, CIPC is also CIPC is also going to be incorporated. The different branches are going to be incorporated, but the true power is the people's power. Everything is coordinated. No, I will take this truck and take it. No, I will say this need not happen in Portuguesa, but it happened in other places. We deliver the trucks to the quadrant of peace, and the trucks disappear in one municipality. They took it to another area. They took away the painting, and they were putting the painting of the mayor with the face of the mayor, and we cannot allow this. Those trucks belongs to you. And the mayors here in Portuguesa, I'm certain that they will not do this, but it happened. So I'm here saying this as a warning to prevent it, because these trucks, these pickup trucks, they go out to patrol in their 4 communal circuits. Whatever school is on the way, they have to stop, enter the school, greet the people in the school with a lot of respect, greet the children that are studying there. If, for example, someone has a medical emergency, the first aid that they will have is that pickup truck. There's no need. You can get on that truck to take them there. But because it can be there and save someone's life. If you carry out your patrol in your area and there's someone in need of assistance, you can do the route that you can go through that place, pick up the person, take them to the health center, and then pick him up to take him home. Now, who decides this? Me from Caracas. The governor from his position as governor. No, it is the. In Venezuela, citizens continue to mobilize in support of acting President Delcy Rodriguez and to demand the release of President Nicolás Maduro and Celia Flores. Bram Meir, our correspondent, has more details.
Today marks 1 month since the U.S. military dropped missiles and various locations in Venezuela, killing 100 people, including civilians, and kidnapping constitutional President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores. There have been protests going on all month across Venezuela, and I've witnessed many of them firsthand during my coverage for teleSUR. Just yesterday, there were 2 separate protests demanding freedom for Nicolás Maduro in Caracas, the capital. There was a protest in front of the Supreme Court with thousands of union workers showing their support for Delcy Rodriguez and demanding freedom for Nicolás Maduro. And last night, a vigil was held near the Plaza de Moneda in downtown Caracas for freedom for Nicolás and Celia. So today, on the 1-month anniversary, a huge protest is planned for downtown Caracas, where tens of thousands of people are going to pour in from the neighborhoods on the periphery of the city. Community leaders, residents of the communes, union workers, workers' council members, and all other people who are sympathetic for the cause of sovereignty in Venezuela, who want to have their voices heard in their demand for freedom for Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores.
Turkey joins the day of action in support of Venezuela and to demand the release of President Nicolás Maduro and Deputy Celia Flores. Our correspondent Yunus Soner has more.
Hello from Istanbul, from Turkey. Turkey was one of the countries that rejected the hijacking of the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and the first combatant Celia Flores on January 3rd. Across all over the political parties, there was a shared opinion that this was an attack on international law, an illegal act of aggression committed by the United States of America. A month later, here we are in the city center of Istanbul, where dozens of people have gathered to a conference organized by the Vatan Party, one of the political parties of Turkey, and with the participation of Venezuela's Consul General here in Istanbul, Lisette Marquez. Lisette Marquez, in her opening speech, emphasized that the Venezuelan institutionality, despite this aggression, has stood firm, as well as the Venezuelan people did, and they defended the peace in their country, and they defended against this imperialist attack. Vice President of Vatan Party, Serdar Üsküplü, in his speech emphasized that the Venezuelan state, the Venezuelan army, and the Venezuelan people are not only defending the sovereignty of Venezuela, but also that of Turkey and the entire global South, as the United States imperialism is trying to attack on 5 different fronts globally. He counted among them Cuba, Iran, and other fronts as well. And he emphasized that the U.S. imperialism is doomed to fail in this offensive. Erdem İlker Mutlu, an expert on international law from the Hacettepe University, also held a speech. He clearly explained why this attack, why this hijacking by the United States was an illegal act, a violation of international law, and he also emphasized that this is an attempt of the United States to impose globally a new form of hegemony. All speakers have agreed that the U.S. attempt to impose this hegemony is doomed to fail, and the people who were listening also interrupted the speeches frequently, shouting actually, that U.S. imperialism will fall, that President Maduro will be free, and Venezuela will win, which was also the slogan of this event: Venezuela will win and Maduro will be free. It's noteworthy that the Vice President of the Vatan Party, Serdar Üsküplü, in his speech said that 5 years from today, Nicolás Maduro will be president of Venezuela, and he will be remembered in history books, while U.S. President Donald Trump will be forgotten. So the mood here in Istanbul in this event is strongly in solidarity with Venezuela, and also self-confident of a U.S. failure in Venezuela and elsewhere.
On topic, we're now joined by political scientist Eduardo Meneses to deepen on the impact of the U.S. blatant violation, its aggression against Venezuela, not only for the Bolivarian Republic, but for the entire region and the international system. Welcome, Eduardo, from the South.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Eduardo, it has been exactly 1 month today of the U.S. aggression against Venezuela and the kidnapping of the constitutional president Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores. A month passed. What are your takes? What has been the impact for Venezuela and for the region as a whole with the U.S. empire exercising its hegemony over the different countries of the region to try to implement their own policies in their own interest?
Well, I think that the main takeaway that we can mention after this month is that definitely the real face of the U.S. imperialism has been shown. What happened in the aggression to the Venezuelan people had nothing to do with all the narrative that the Trump administration was trying to take out, like democracy, liberty, fight against terrorism. It has nothing to do with that, and we have been liberty, fight against terrorism. It has nothing to do with that, and we have been seeing during this month how all the U.S. imperialism has been getting forward in many other fronts, like all the debate on Greenland, what we are seeing right now with the total illegal and arbitrary blocus on Cuba, which has been strengthened to the point that Mexico had to take a step back on the exportation of oil to the Cuban island, and we have seen the same things in other territories where in Middle East the U.S. is taking very aggressive stances in the same way. So it's very obvious that what happened to Venezuela had nothing to do with all the narrative that the U.S. has been developing during this month, the Trump administration, but really has to do with this strategy from the Trump administration, but the whole U.S. state, which is trying to maintain an hegemonic place in the world by the only use of weapons, because there's not other ways in which the U.S. could try to maintain this global power position that it has had in the last 2 to 3 decades, if it's not by weapons. They do not have the same power economically, financially, even culturally. It has been eroding a lot in the last decade. So that's the only way that the US empire has shown to try to maintain its position in the world.
Eduardo, for a month now, we have seen the Venezuelan people rallying, taking to the streets to express their support for the acting President Delcy Rodriguez and for the Bolivarian Revolution, and also to demand the immediate release of the presidential couple. How important are these actions that are taking place in Venezuela, but also around the world in different countries in all 5 continents? People demanding respect for international law, for the respect of sovereignty and the right to self-determination of the people. How important are these actions coming from the people to ensure to be able to give way to a true international order that managed to guarantee the respect of all these international rights that exist today, but are obviously not being implemented because the rule of the strong appears to be the one that is being enforced right now?
Well, there are different levels in which we could make an analysis of the importance of all this popular support that has been showing up during all this month. The first one is how the false narrative of the Trump administration around a dictatorial regime that was going to fall by itself if they took Maduro, what's going to happen, and that never happened. It's exactly the opposite. That we have seen the Venezuelan people rallying together against this violation of the sovereignty, this violation of the international law, this totally illegal abduction of the President Maduro. But there's also another layer of analysis that's really important that we need to develop here, which is the fact that in all the corners of the world, we are seeing this aggression of the Trump administration against the Venezuelan people as a potential aggression to every people of the world. Obviously, mainly in Latin America, because the US have been expressing in the last months, and it has been put in the new Monroe Doctrine that went out in November, in last November, from the Trump administration, that Latin America is being mainly a territory that the U.S. is considering taking like its own colony, and we need to use this word of colonization of our continent, because that's exactly what the Trump administration is saying. But in other corners of the world, could be in the global south, but even in the global north, people are understanding that this violation of international law is something that is threatening every people in the world. It's not only Venezuela, it's not only Cuba, it's whole Latin America, but all the peoples in the world, because as I was saying, in this moment, the UN, the international institutions that were supposed to defend and reinforce international law have not been able to do that. And we have been seeing, I must say, we have been seeing since the genocide in Palestine that international law, I think, has been buried through the bombs in Gaza. And after that, what is left when we do not have international law is only the law of the strongest. And that's exactly what the US imperialism is trying to bring to the table. That's exactly what the Trump administration is doing when they are defunding the UN institutions, as the UN General Secretary said in these last days, they're in a very critical economic situation, which they may need to close some of their headquarters, for example, in the US, if they continue to be defunded. And that is an extremely dangerous place for all the peoples in the world, knowing that international law is not longer an option, and it's only the law of the strongest that could dictate what's going to happen in the relationships between nations. That's a very strong threat to all the peoples in the world.
Thank you, Eduardo, for your time here and your inputs in from the South.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you as always. Well, like this, among the night, Venezuelan citizens held a national vigil to reaffirm their demand for the release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Silvia Flores 1 month after their kidnapping by U.S. military forces. People gathered at the Alta Gracia Parish in Caracas for a vigil demanding the liberation of Venezuela's